We're in the deep of the Oakland Ballers offseason. Business is picking up. Opening day is May 20th. Spring training is even before that. I'm joined by Don Wakamatsu and Tyler Petersen. You guys are building this baseball club, and man, I mean, what have you learned going into this year based on the experiences you had last year? I mean, last year, this was something that got put together all on the fly. It was like you're flying a plane as you're building it. This time you have a full off season, a little more time. So what's been the big difference for you roster construction wise?
Well, I'll start. I mean, last year, this was a new endeavor for me because I've been in the big leagues for a long time and haven't been at this level for so long that I relied heavily on Tyler. Tyler did a tremendous job of putting the roster together last year. I think one thing we did hit on that we're trying to emulate again this year is just the makeup of the kids that we bring in. I think we've done a nice job of kind of integrating Zoom calls where we can actually see these kids' face. The challenge is that you'll get a name from somebody, you'll look at their baseball reference page, and you might see one video on YouTube, and you got to make a decision on these kids. And there's a lot of competition out there right now between the independent leagues and what MLB did with the draft, cutting it down to 20. So you're talking about 600 players a year at least that aren't getting drafted this year. That are looking for a place to play. And I think a lot of it for me is just the education of talking to these kids and trying to figure out where they're at mentally. It's tough if you're a college senior and your hopes and dreams were to get drafted, and now your options are the independent league. And Tyler and I get on the phone and talk to these kids about, these are the options. And if you look at our league last year or just our team alone, we had 4 contracts that were offered to our players last year. 3 of them signed. So it is a stepping stone. I played in this league way back in 1985. And so that was when it was an affiliate. So, I came out of Arizona State and my first pro experience was in the Pioneer League. And so just having gone through that, it helps a little bit, to kind of relate to the players a little bit.
Well, jumping in, Tyler, you have a lot of experience in this league as well. So obviously, last year was still a learning experience building a new team, but just what have you drawn on from last year that you can bring into this season?
Well, I think for the offseason, a lot of it is sort of similar. We didn't necessarily start this year with no players, but you do sort of start your recruiting process over again every offseason because, like Don said, it is a stepping stone for some players. We want to see our players advance. If you're familiar with the minor league process out there, then that everyone wants to advance up in the minor leagues, and we're really no different, whether that's directly into an affiliate org, whether that's to one of the more experienced independent leagues. So we do it to try to figure out where each of our players are in their process for those that we want to re-sign. And then once that re-sign period is over, going out and aggressively scouting. One of the things we do have the benefit of is we actually exist. So players know about us. Players sort of get what we're about now. They see the success we've had last year, not just the playoff run, but having the 4 players get contracts transferred, which, is a huge part of our program and something we want to create the opportunity for these guys. So with the free agent class that we have this year, which is now right about a full roster size currently, we're, I think, pretty happy about how things look. And I think if you want to take year over year, February 21, February 22 in 24 versus now, and I think Don might agree, I think we're a stronger cohesive group as far as the talent that we've been able to bring in.
Yeah, and when you guys talk contracts, I mean, we're talking guys that you signed that were then signed by Major League Baseball organizations, which is a huge testament to the type of players that you're scouting and the work that you're doing, because obviously that is a huge piece of this puzzle. Is the draft isn't as deep as it used to be. There are far less rounds, and so you really need to have the ability to get another lease on life sometimes in your MLB career. So getting these guys up to the big league organizations too, it's just a huge testament to what you guys are doing. And I want to talk about some of the guys that you've brought on, because I look at like Cam Buford, who's a Grambling State home run champ, or Christian Almanza, the St. Mary's home run champ. Like, you're bringing on players that are doing incredible things in their college careers. I'm really excited to see, what happens when these guys come together. So maybe tout some of the dudes that you signed and what you're excited to see from them.
Well, I'll start. I think you have to kind of understand the recruiting process in the first place that Tyler mentioned. You're trying to juggle quite a few things. If you look at last year, losing 3 of our players, our best players, to affiliate ball, and still doing very well and making the playoffs, and just missing the championship. And the second part is that we are a stepping stone, and the more that we can move players on from the Oakland Ballers, the easier it is the following year to recruit players. Because obviously that's what they want to do. They want to be able to come to Oakland Ballers, get seen, and move on. I think one of the main attractions is our coaching staff. When we talked to players out there that just came out of college, most of them want to know, well, who am I going to be working with? Well, if you look at Aaron Miles, who played 10 years, was an awfully good major league player, won a World Series with the Cardinals. Jimmy Dietrich was a longtime advanced scout, also pitched in the big leagues, and James Harris, former first round pick. And so those are some of the caveats that we can offer these guys, And so, as Tyler said, we have to find out where they're at mentally. I think we educate a lot of players more than anything, and meaning that, some of these players that didn't get drafted, that they're wanting to know, should I go to the American Association, the Atlantic League, the Frontier League, or the Pioneer League? And their first instinct is to go to the highest league or the oldest league. And a lot of those guys go there and fail, because that's an awfully big jump from, college to, say, the Atlantic League or the American League or Association. And so you have to talk to these guys, and the players that we're scouting right now. And, we'd like to be able to tout who we lost already just this winter, and going to sign players. They agree to a contract, or we have a verbal agreement, and then they end up getting picked up over the winter by an affiliate. So we'd have an awfully good, probably an all-star team if we got all the guys that we were able to recruit, but that's not the case. But, we're real happy with the athleticism. I think offensively, we have some guys that have maybe better credentials than we even had last year. As you mentioned, Almond, bat for us. This is a real exciting player for me that, can play both third base, center field, can run. He's a big kid. And then we look at sleeper guys, like Tatilii, out of Arizona Christian. Here's this real small school, but you look at his numbers, and he hit 54 home runs and stole 50-something bases, and is a really aggressive, hungry kid. So they come from all facets of different levels. I guess our scouting plan is to try to go out and find the best athletes. And does every one of them have an opportunity to go on to play affiliate to fulfill what our overall mission is?
I'll just tell a quick story, and I think it kind of underscores some of the differences in recruiting. So if we take Christian and our interactions with him, we first reached out to him December 2023 was the first time we sort of made contact with him, which was before his senior year. We keep tabs on guys, especially guys in our local area. I mean, I think it's like anything else. For, let's say, college football, you hate to lose the recruits who are in your own backyard. I think we would be sort of the same way. So a guy like Christian Almanzo, who had a huge year in 23 and then had another huge year in 24, we know that he is going to be on the cusp of getting drafted, getting a free agent contract. And so those are the guys we're trying to target. Once you hit 23, 24 in college years old, you sort of get a little long in the tooth as far as your ability to get drafted. So we knew that he would be right around the area to where he may be available, he may not. He might get an opportunity off the jump. So we had an ongoing conversation with him. He thought he was going to get drafted. He wasn't. He got some interest from teams afterwards to talk to him for a couple more weeks. Didn't get signed. And then we get a text from him this November. He says he's ready to go and continue his journey with us. And so now he's going to have a great opportunity to get seen and get picked up from our squad this year. And there are a lot of guys who we go down that same path with, but they can't find it within themselves to keep going. They think, I've done all this work. I was an all-conference player. I had scouts turn my name in. I should have gone in the draft. I should have been picked. If I wasn't picked then it's never going to happen for me. And that's not really the case at all. And in fact, it's quite common with the new system we have that this process of sort of a following for the player in indie ball. So, for example, Elijah Pleasance last year, drafted by the Royals out of high school, was on a Mets scout team for a bit. He didn't have a fantastic college career by any means, and then his draft league numbers sort of belie his talents, and so he was a known quantity in a number of scouting systems, and so he comes and plays with us, and in something like his first 15 innings, he strikes out 23 and walks 4. Well, that was good enough for someone to then pull the trigger on him. They had followed him. He's already in the systems. He's in their scouting departments. That was time to pull the trigger. And so for some of these guys who have big years, they think, well, why don't they want me now? It's just the opportunities are so few.
Yeah, and there's a lot we can jump into there, but I'd be remiss if we didn't jump into open tryouts here real quick, because that's coming up here in less than, 2.5 weeks or so. But, you guys clearly have the eye for talent. You clearly have a big league talented coaching staff. When you get to these open tryouts, what exactly are you looking for? What are some of the priorities? Because, I know 3 players were signed to spring training last year. One of them, Kelsey Whitmore, was an open tryout participant, broke the Pioneer League record, becoming the first woman to start a Pioneer League game. So, is there something you're keenly looking for in open tryouts, or you're just going to assess whatever talent level walks in and what skill set they have?
Well, I think in our initial conversation, especially mine with Paul and Brian, the ownership group, of why I joined the Ballers was to try to I guess, start to implement, scouting in our own backyard per se, and so that's just one of the things that we do, is to be able to have an open tryout where people can come out, and we did have some players sign last year. I think we had almost 100 players last year, and we end up signing 3, and it's I guess a credit to the people around the Bay Area that want to be a part of the Baller organization. But it's really, most of them are smaller school guys that maybe just didn't get an opportunity. Some guys blossom a little bit later. Some guys are in the Pecos League, that are just playing to play, when get a shot, and they come out and they show really good bat speed, or they show a really good arm, running speed, all those tangibles that we're looking for. And Kelsey, the biggest one with her is, we knew about her, we just didn't know much about her makeup. And after having conversations with her out there and talking to her a little bit, we knew she could handle the pressure, and just her dedication alone kind of just, I wasn't there. The coaching staff and Tyler were there. They called me up and said, we have to have Kelsey. And she did a great job for us last year. And, so makeup plays a lot with it. What we need right now, as Tyler said, our roster's getting pretty full. We end up bringing extra people to spring training, because you're going to have some injuries, and then you whittle down to a 26-man roster. The other thing, as Tyler mentioned, we might see somebody, and this happened last year, where we just don't have a roster spot at that point. But a month into the season, we call that person that we really like. So it's not just that we're going to sign somebody right there. We have different options. We can bring them on a non-roster invite to spring training. We can sign them right there with a contract, or we can, follow up as we need players during the season.
I think if you want to look for a common denominator last year between Kelsey, Connor, and Andrew, it was the folks who surprised us. So we're going out there, we have a broad spectrum of players, open tryout, There's no sort of minimum experience needed. It is come out, show out. So Connor Caparelli comes out. When you see a guy throw 93, 94 at open tryout, your ears immediately perk up. So he was able to show good fastball and made spring training roster. Now, he didn't make our club out of camp, but he did get an opportunity with the Idaho Falls Chuckers going through the waiver process. So it is an ongoing process for some of these guys that, look, you get your name out there, and there's a chance that if it's not necessarily with us, it might be with someone else. Andrew was able to join our club later in the year, like Don said, and he unfortunately got hurt in the game he participated in, but he did hit a booming double. I still remember it. And he's a guy that we now know about if we ever do get in a pinch, a guy who has some good experience in the Orioles system. So I think we're going to be looking for someone to surprise us, someone to say, there's something there that we can really maybe hold on to, or there's a particular need we might have in the defense department, the speed department, whatever it might be, that we either need now or we might need in August.
And then, but all of us here are, have very strong Bay Area connections. Don, I know you're from Hayward and coach for the A's. And, I think that as you go through this process, the buzz the Ballers created, how has that helped find guys like a Michael O'Hara, for example, who I talked to the other day, who's diehard Oakland sports fan and just loves everything the Ballers are doing and is so excited to be a part of the team. How have you seen what the Ballers done resonating with some of these guys that you're talking to and sensing the excitement that they might have for actually being a part of this organization in particular?
Well, I think creating that environment that players like to play and that they have a platform to show their skills. And we had a lot of success last year. And, thus we had a lot of players that wanted to come back to us, return to us. But not only that, some of our best recruits, and I'll get into that in a second, came from word of mouth from other players. They're like, we really like it. It's a great place to play. You'll enjoy it. And we end up getting some referrals from those guys and signing some players. And, the college season is over and the draft is over, we start looking at those players again. So it's a revolving door a little bit. And so, this winter, I think what we did more than anything is we did try to focus on local players, and we got several. I don't know, Tyler, you can correct me, but we probably got 6 guys right now that are from the Bay Area, and we're going to continue to look at that. And we're doing as much as we can, I think, even at the youth level, because as I mentioned, to be a Bay Area guy. I have a lot of ties with Oakland and the Oakland Coliseum. I played my high school football championship there. I played my basketball championship there and baseball, and then I ended up coaching for the A's and coming back as a manager with the Mariners. So, there's a lot of pride with the guys I grew up with and played in the Bay Area, the Randy Johnsons and the Dale Swams and our Kansas City Royal Club. We had Ned Yost, Doug Henry, myself. We had a lot of Bay Area connections during that time when I was growing up, and it's just kind of like trying to pay it forward. Can we get guys out of our area? Can we maybe entice some young kids to take up the game of baseball by coming out to a Baller game?
Go ahead, Tyler. You could jump in on that. What are you seeing from people that are, enticed by the Ballers and what they've done so far?
I think on the player side specifically.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about starting a team from scratch, as we did last year, is we sort of got to decide what kind of team we wanted to be, insofar as how we wanted to recruit players, if there was any kind of ethos or philosophy we wanted to put into that, just beyond let's get the best players, let's try to win games, so on and so forth. We've got a group and a staff that really cares about these players just beyond the field. We have guys who have now moved on to the next part of their career and actually have gotten jobs in the next part of their career from connections with our staff, which I think is really cool. And as Don said, the word of mouth recruiting for us, player to player, is a huge part of what we want to accomplish, because it's sort of that game recognized game ability for players to say, hey, like, I've got a buddy and he is super talented. He's looking for an opportunity. That's the kind of stuff we like to collect. And with what we're doing, I think it plays in really nicely to players recognizing the opportunity we have here, and what we are doing with that opportunity for them, and wanting to incorporate other players into it. So, for example, Chandler David came to us because Tyler Davis moved on from us and went to the Chicago White Sox. He told us, hey, I got this buddy. I don't know if he's going to get drafted or not, but he'd be perfect for you. And so we talked to Chandler. He knows what we were able to do for Tyler. He came here. He had an amazing season. We even got a guy who didn't end up signing with us, who gave us a referral for a player, which is how we landed Dante Stewart. We were trying to recruit this guy as a second baseman, third baseman, had a good number of talks with him. He knew a couple of guys on the team already. He said, hey, ultimately, I'm going to go with this other team, but I've got this guy who'd be perfect for you. We call up Dante. And I think he either signed his contract the same day or the next day. I mean, he was just like, this sounds great. Where do I sign? I've heard great things. So those are the kind of things we want to continue to build on. And it helps not just our recruiting, but just the way we run things. And I think that's, when you talk about a good environment for these guys, that's something that continues to get fostered that way.
Yeah, I think it's cool to think like, Tyler Lozano, a fan favorite, a guy that grew up out in Stockton, but, one of his best friends is Christian Almanza, who just joined the Ballers. And I think it's cool that now you have two of these best friends on the same squad. So you can kind of see how these connections begin to form. And,
the fun part of that is almost a pure coincidence. Now, I'm sure it helped Christian to make a decision that Tyler was on here, but a lot of times we find ourselves in situations where we're talking to two guys, and then it's like, oh wait, you went to Dallas Baptist, you went to Dallas, or you went to Utah. Like, it's like, oh, these guys might know each other. Oh, they were roommates. It is actually fun to see stuff like that, and it is a small world. You play on the same Northwoods team. You play in the same draft league team. There's a ton of connections that go around. I mean, one of the best parts last year about our rivalry with the High Wheelers was the fact that so many of those guys on those two teams, both us and YOLO recruited heavily out of the draft league. There were so many guys that had played together, played against each other in the draft league. So there was already a lot of good, healthy rivalries, which created some really good baseball games.
Yeah, and to think two brand new franchises that were built by the same group are now providing all these opportunities, roster spots, jobs around the team. It's really cool to think, because obviously a lot of people, just need one additional look, one additional chance to keep their career going. I want to touch on Raimondi Park because, Don mentioned the importance of giving back to the community and keeping baseball going in the East Bay, especially with the departure of Major League Baseball. Raimondi Park, it was unplayable by Little Leaguers, and now it's fully renovated. You can play pro games there. You can play Little League games. Their high school championships. What are some of the park factors, though? Like, if you're a fan that goes to games and they watch, like, as you're assembling a team, what are some park factors that you've learned and found? Obviously, left field's an incredibly short porch. Is there something that you guys take into account as a piece of the ballpark and how it's built?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Number one is the fact that we didn't know how it was going to play. What's interesting is you talk to players from other teams, and a lot of players want to play there mainly because of the atmosphere. And one of the things that Paul and Brian talked about when we put the stadium together was to be able to have that experience where the fans were on top of the players, where the from home plate to the backstop was fairly close, and it felt like kind of the old school, the Fenway type ballparks. And then to be able to renovate that park, most people wouldn't recognize what was there before. And that was part of the mission when we set out, is to be able to revitalize that whole area there. And I think it's going at warp speed. There's a food court there now. There's other businesses moving in there. Streets are repaved. It's just a great feeling to be able to have an impact like that, and to bring 4,000 people, a night out there to enjoy that. And again, to motivate young kids to maybe want to be professional athletes. But the ballpark in left field, I think the biggest surprise for me, which is really cool, is to have the fire truck, the firemen come out there and park in left field, and play the sirens when a home run's hit. So, we're going to continue to try to make advances with the ballparks. We do the ballpark in general is kind of I guess a positive for us to recruit in some ways, just because the Pioneer League's known as a hitters league because of the elevation in most of the northern ballparks, where we're at sea level and the ball doesn't carry as much, even though we do have a short left field. You got to hit it at times, and there's wind and there's sun. There's different factors to that ballpark. It's got a lot of character, and we're going to continue to make advances with that.
Yeah, if you want to look at statistics around the league as far as park factors go, our ballpark is the hardest park to hit at. If you're just going purely off of batting average statistics. And if you think back to early baller days, so late 23, early 24, we had started building the team sort of what we thought Laney was going to play like. So we wanted defense up the middle, speed, because we sort of figured out and as it turns out, Raimondi plays similar to that, where defense up the middle and speed are pretty prized. And so we tried to hit that hard last year. We tried to hit that hard this year as well. And I think you see from some of the signings we've had thus far, some pretty good defensive shortstops and center fielders we've gone after. But as far as pure numbers, yeah, you're going to see a couple home runs to left, but it is not an easy park to hit. We are at sea level. The plate might even be below sea level. I'm not sure, but it is a big advantage for our pitchers. But I think if you ask our hitters, they're not going to say that it's something that breaks their confidence, because they know how to hit there now. But for a visiting team coming in, it certainly is an advantage for us not having to adjust the other way. It's sort of like the National League having to go to American League Park back in the old days and getting a DH. When we go up to the mountains, we get to see some balls travel a little farther than we normally would. So I think as far as park factors go, that's probably the biggest impact.
You mentioned defense up the middle. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Tremaine Cobb, one of the new signings, he's like top 2 player in the entire nation in the NCAA, right? Defensive run saved.
For among shortstops, yep. I believe there was a gentleman out of Virginia who might have been above him that took home a certain award. But as far as purely the metrics go, I believe he was runner-up.
Yes, you can see kind of the strategy and then the talent that you're acquiring to kind of fit that need. It's kind of fun to look at. And I know we'll have a million more of these conversations as we go. So we'll end it here. But before we go, I want to know, Don, what was your single most favorite Ballers memory from season 1?
Probably with Dolly, the pitcher, winning a game with a home run derby. I'm watch. If I don't travel with a club, I watch it on what's the
Flow Sports.
Yeah, on Flow. And so, I hadn't talked to the manager at that time, and normally it was Dondre, who was our home run derby champion, and he already won 3 or 4 games at that point. But we had been playing in a lot of heat, and Dondre was a little tired, and Dolly came in as a pitcher. I about lost it, until he won the game with it. So that was exciting, and just finishing. You'd like to win everything, but we had a lot of things that happened last year that brought the team closer together, and you just find a lot of pride in knowing that you had hand in bringing this group together. And the guys were really sad when we didn't win it. But those are memories and relationships that will last a lifetime.
How about you, Tyler?
Oh, should have prepped me before. I could have gone through my
No, it's more fun this way.
of
You
100
gotta be
games that I
surprised.
saw last year. I will say for that Dolly performance, I believe the case was that we had gone, I don't know if it was 3 straight knockout rounds, but it certainly was 2. And Jose Gonzalez had either beaten us twice that week already or once. And the Dolly ended up being the one that beat Jose Gonzalez, was huge. Probably one of 2 things. Either Lozano's home run in the playoff game, just for how dramatic that ended up being, because I mean we talk about that fun chant a lot for Tilo's name, but I mean that literally sort of was made up on the last day of the year as a sort of fun chant for one of the players. And that happened to be, I think it was something like a 10 pitch, 11 pitch at bat against a tough right-hander, and he takes him deep, which was just dreadfully dramatic. I think the most unexpected result of the year for me, and maybe the one where I let off the most steam, was in Northern Colorado, the 5th of 6th game. I believe it was the first game of a doubleheader, not the second, but Dave Matthews against Brett Barrera in a knockout round. Brett hits 3 out. Dave Matthews hits 2 in the first 2 pitches, and then sends the next 5 as outs, the home run derby champ in the league. That was, I think, one of the biggest surprises of the year, and certainly a very dramatic moment. And that was down the playoff stretch, so every single game was huge. I think for me, that might have been the loudest shriek I gave out over the broadcast over the entire year. So
I didn't work for the Ballers. I went to a bunch of games. I'll go to. It's only fair that I wreck my brain as well. I'll take it back to opening day, because I remember getting there really early. I probably talked to you, Tyler, one of the first people I ran into when I got there, and seeing people putting the finishing touches on the ballpark as it was about to be played at. But then to hear the "Let's Go Oakland" chants for the first time at Raimondi Park, to see like 30 to 40 people riding by on bikes on the freshly paved streets, and then to see Dondre Hubbard hit that big home run early in the game that went right to that fire truck. It was like so magical. And I was like, okay, Oakland baseball is going to be all right. And so that was it for me. I loved that. I went to a bunch of games, including the playoffs, but I can't wait to be at all of them this year. And guys, we'll do this much more, many more conversations to come. This is just our first edition, so we'll stop it here. Thank you so much for joining me.